As a father, some of the greatest moments in my life are watching my children win, whether it's get first place in a relay race, make the game-winning basket in a state championship. And I wonder, did Bruce Banner look at his son Skaar and say, my proudest moment, when he chopped off a giant dragon head? Hey guys, this is the Extreme Channel. My name is Mr. X, and here we have another Extreme collectible. That's right, we have a custom 1/4 scale, maybe, Skaar, son of Hulk. If you're unfamiliar with who this character is, you're kind of in the same boat I am. And if you're not a follower of Hulk in the comics, you're going to find some things in here that, hey, I've heard of that before, even though I haven't read the comics. So we're going to do an in-depth review today of this guy. So as I said, he's a custom. That means it's a private, unlicensed commission. He's supposedly 1/4 scale, which we'll talk about in design, which is how big he's supposed to be. And Skaar, as I said, is the son of Hulk. So this is from the Planet Hulk storyline from the planet Skaar. And you may recognize that planet name. In the MCU, they brought it to life in the Thor movie where Thor fought Gladiator Hulk. Now, I also do have a comic-based Gladiator Hulk statue. You can actually check out the review right here. I actually have him in my office. I have a whole Hulk collection right over there, and he is facing off against Silver Savage, which is from the comics that these are based on as well. Skaar is the son of Hulk, and everything I just told you is about the extent of my knowledge. I do know he has a lot of similar powers, and the reason why I purchased this is I thought it just looked incredibly badass. And I thought the render looked good, and then I saw some initial photos, and I was like, I'm not so sure I should have done that. But here on the table in front of me, I'm just going to let you guys know that this is amazing. Can't wait to display him with my other pieces. I'm going to have kind of a middle section of the Hulks going on. All green characters. We're going to have Skaar. We're going to have Maestro. We're going to have a traditional Hulk, and we're going to have She-Hulk. If you want to see what that looks like, go ahead and check out the Extreme Channel Facebook page. I've thrown the link down in the description below. Not only check that out, but make sure you like it so you get notifications when I post exclusive stuff like that. Before we dive into this, we are super close to giving away a statue. Check this out. We are going to hit 20,000 subscribers in 2020. To do that, we're giving away a statue every 2,500 subs. At 15,000 subs, the winner will get to choose between these two PCS Mortal Kombat statues. Make sure that you've liked this video, you've subscribed to the channel, and you've hit that bell notification. Then stay tuned towards the end of this video to find out how to enter. While I've read the Planet Hulk Omnibus, I don't even remember Skaar in it. It may be some of the other stories in the Planet Hulk storyline, so I definitely have to go check that out. Because I don't know too much about him, I don't know how well I can judge the concept. So we're going to look at a few different things. We're going to look at, does it look cool? What's going on here? And there's a lot of different things. I think this is actually taken from this comic right here. I did some Google searching, and obviously here he's riding the red dragon. So apparently maybe the dragon pissed him off, and that's why he killed him. But let's take a look. So down at the bottom here, you have a wooden exterior on the base with some metal links around it. And I love this, and I don't know how it ties into the storyline, but it's an incredibly different base than I've ever seen. And I usually call these kind of like a sub base. It looks fantastic. We're going to talk about the paint and sculpt later, but then you have the dragon head that is obviously chopped off. There's a pool of blood running over this muddy bottom. The tongue is hanging out. His teeth are extremely sharp. It looks fantastic. Crazy about this is the dragon head is bigger than Skaar's entire body. But as you move up further, you see Skaar standing on it like a warrior. He is not only a crazy looking warrior, but he has weapons that are bloodied up from the battle. He's dressed almost what I would classify as tribal uniform. Almost like he lives out in the wilderness, and obviously I assume that's part of the storyline. I remember Skaar was very like that from the stories I have read about it. He not only has the giant weapons in his hand, he has one on his back, and he's in a very fierce pose. He's leaning forward, victorious, and all the portraits tell a very similar story. However, they do indicate a different age on him, which we'll look at during design. So I like it a lot. I like the fact it's so different. I do worry though, I think the dragon head takes away from Skaar. Not only because of the size of it, but I think that the dragon head we'll talk about in paint and sculpt is done very well. So I think that's a negative with this concept. However, I honestly wouldn't want him too big because then he'd be hard to display, which is more of a design issue. But I like what they did with the base, but I like what they did with the sub base. I like the whole base itself, the presence. There's not too many statues of this character done, so I think they did everything correct. They tried to keep it true, and you'll see that in some of the switch outs. So I give the concept a 4 out of 5. Even if you're not familiar with this character, you might walk in and think this is Hulk. it just looks great, and I think it's definitely something your eye would be drawn to. Now we'll talk about design, and let me get the dimensions first. So the diameter of the base is about 18 inches. However, you see the horns stick out quite a bit, about 6 inches more. The total height is right at, I think it was 28 when I measured it up to the hilt of his sword here, or almost 28, 29. Now, even though Skaar is leaning over, his height is only about 16 inches. Now, if this is 1/4 scale, that would insinuate he's 64 inches tall. Hunched over, of course, which doesn't really add up. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the scale is supposed to be 1/5. But so I think he's a little on the small side.
That's what she said.
Let's dive into the assembly of the piece, though. Had 2 boxes, were fairly light, which helped with the shipping we're going to talk about. Standard custom black foam in the straps. And then the first box actually had 2 layers. The first layer was essentially all the additional pieces. The second layer was Skaar's body. And then the second box was the dragon head in the base. And as you're going to see right here, the dragon head actually fell off the base, and it's not supposed to. You'll see that evident of the glue on the bottom of the base. As you saw, kind of a breakage, but it doesn't really affect anything, so it's not a big deal. I like the fact that it's so easy to assemble. I like the fact that there's not a ton of switch outs, and the switch outs actually do tell a lot. Let's look at those. So first you have the portrait that I've been showing, and to me this is almost like an older version. And they did some incredibly good design and engineering to cover up these seam lines. Then here's one I'm not a fan of. His hair's kind of covering his face. It is a younger version. Again, just not a fan. I think a lot of people would like this though, especially if they probably knew the storyline. And then last is my favorite portrait. This is probably the one I'm going to display. I do like the other portraits a lot more than I thought I would. The more I look at him, the more I worry how small he's going to look next to the other Hulk characters. And I know Skaar shared a lot of the same powers as the Hulk, but he wasn't as strong, and then he had some additional powers. I think his size was traditionally smaller, so I think it's okay. But like I said, in my mind, it's a little bit too small.
That's what she said.
So the engineering looks great. I love that it's fully sculpted. All pros in my book for that. So really the biggest negative, I think, is the size. So design, I think, is also a 4 out of 5 on this piece because he's still displayable next to some Hulk pieces, because a lot of Hulk pieces themselves are about 29 or 30 inches tall. But now we're going to dive into the video review of the sculpt, and there's things on this that I didn't expect to like that I really like, and the more I look at it, the more I'm digging it. But take a look. All right, so first I do want to start on the portraits. Like I said, this is kind of my least favorite. I think they did a decent job with the hair. There's a lot of strands in there. There's almost a little bit of a hint of blue. So I like that they didn't keep it all black. It kind of bounces off the rest of the skin a little bit. The features in the face look great. Like even some of the detail in the eyebrow and how it's covering up his face. I like the dynamic aspect of it. It really helps it flow. And even though you can't see a lot of his face, this is one I thought I wouldn't like at all. However, I think it's pretty decent. So he has the braided back hair and then kind of that furry neck warmer, or whatever you call it. We're going to talk more about the sculpt of that on the boots. But decent job on the teeth and the mouth there and the eyes. His beard flowing. Again, kind of gives that illusion that it's kind of giving movement to the statue. But again, I like the look of this as well, a lot more than I thought I would actually. I might keep this portrait out. But then the last one here, and this was originally the only one I saw when I ordered it, so it was the one I cared for the most, kind of more fierce. And while I haven't been a follower of the character, this is kind of the Skaar, because I knew who the character was. But great job on the teeth, the eyes, the expression, very menacing on this. Well, let's start down here at the base. This sub base here looks fantastic. The wood looks like real wood, the texture and the sculpt and the paint on it, along with that metallic ring on the top and bottom. They did a fantastic job. Let's look at the mud here. So normally when you have a mud effect like this, it kind of really looks like shit, literally. I don't think it does here. I think that moist effect on it really makes you think, hey, this is a muddy, dirty planet. Now the blood isn't appearing on camera as good as it is in person. In person, it's a lot deeper, darker red type of blood you'd actually see if it was pooling up like this. Here, the light on the reflection is really making it a little bit lighter, but it looks pretty good. I'm pretty impressed. Usually when you have that much blood pooling, it doesn't look that nice. Now the outside scales of the dragon, I don't know if I'm a huge color of that red. I wouldn't want it too bright red to blend in with the blood down below there, but scales all over the place. His horns, smooth on the ends of them, and they turn from this dark brown to this more lighter brown, so maybe that's mud as well. With the orange whited out eyes. Now the whole sculpt of the dragon head is amazing. When you get a little closer, it loses some of that wow factor, but it still looks great, but the mouth does not. When you get closer to the mouth, whether it's the teeth here or that moist effect on the pink tongue hanging out, really impressive. Like I said, with the concept, this kind of steals part of the show. Now, one thing I'm not a big fan of is the sculpt on his outfit here. Whether it's the loincloth, I mean, I wouldn't want it mixed media by any means. I'm glad that it's sculpted, but I don't know if it's the color. It just doesn't look it doesn't look like real mixed media. A lot of times I see sculpt that flows really well. Maybe it's too thick, that might be the issue, or how it bunches up near the boots here. But I do like what they did with the ropes around his boots, how his feet are actually bending over with the flow of the dragon. The metallic parts on him look really good, whether it's his belt or kind of some shin armor here that's tied in. I like that a lot. Very old school. The sword looks okay. It does have a small plastic feel to it. The blood splatter's all right. Not super impressive by any means, but it doesn't look bad. A lot more blood on the axe here. I like the handle of the axe. The factory doing, or the sculptor and then the factory doing the paint on the wood is really good here. The anatomy and color of Skaar is great. They did a really nice job with the highlights of those darker greens on the lighter greens, and then his physique. So he's not super buff. He is extremely buff, but not roided out buff. Just very fit, kind of that tribal. I assume those are like darker green tattoos. Look great. And I didn't show you the back of the dragon, where you can see the bone for the neck. That looks awesome, just like the inside of the mouth. Which is a shame because that'll actually be facing the wall. So the sculpted leather here could have been better. Like I said, I've seen some sculpted leather or coverings like this that actually look like they're mixed media. But it's a phenomenal piece overall. So I switched out the last portrait here for you guys to see as well. So let's talk about the paint. I really like the paint. I like the color on his skin, the tribal tattoos. As we talked about on the dragon, I think it's good, not amazing. However, the glistening effect in his mouth and on the back is great. The blood pooled up on the bottom looks a lot better than I thought it would. And the mud, usually when we have this type of mud, as I said in the video, it reminds me a little bit too much of feces or waste or, you know, shit. This does not. I think it still looks really good, and then the bottom is fabulous as well. I think the paint is definitely a 4 out of 5. It's a really good factory paint job on this piece. I'm a fan. Regarding the sculpt, I think the dragon's phenomenal. I think the base is really good. I think Skaar and his anatomy is fantastic, and I just realized I've probably called him Hulk a few other times. One thing I don't like is some of his uniform. I'm not digging it. I think like in these areas here, the detail's better than I've seen in other custom pieces, but it's just kind of average to me. It doesn't match up with the rest of the great sculpt. Portraits are really good. I'm not seeing a lot of the micro detail I sometimes see, or that this particular group has in some of their upcoming pieces. This is one of their first pieces, but it's still really good, honestly. I think other than the uniform, that's really the big negative on this, I still give the sculpt a 4 out of 5. Very impressed by this piece. The more I look at it, the more I like it. Now, value. One big issue with customs is shipping. You always pay anywhere, especially lately, from $300 to $1,000 just to ship it. This one was more on the cheaper side with those 2 boxes, which I appreciate. I think it was around $300, and then I can't remember the retail, but it was right around $1,000, I believe. So for a large Hulk statue, you're about $1,300, $1,400 all in for a custom rare 1/5 piece of a character that's not done very often. I know I just called him Hulk again. I think the value is very good on this. I think it's a 4 out of 5. Very impressed because a lot of pieces this big from licensed companies now are also costing that much all in. So does this have the X factor? I think the dragon head really helps. It really draws your attention to this piece. I like the fact that he's a different character. I don't think this is a 5 out of 5 statue, and I think part of that is because of my lack of attachment to the character. I think if I knew more about Skaar and I followed him in the comics and I liked him, I would probably give this a 5. But it's definitely at least a 4 out of 5. I wouldn't call this a grail, but I think it's a statue that people are really going to want. I'll have no problem selling it if I want to someday, but definitely going to keep this because I don't think there will be a Skaar out there to beat this. Really well done, really impressed, really happy with this piece. So now I'm going to go ahead and move them over there, but in the meantime, why don't you guys throw down a comment below. Throw that comment below of what you think of this piece. Am I seeing things correctly? Am I just totally missing on this? Is it better than I think it is? Is it worse? Let me know that. To win one of these Mortal Kombat statues, all you have to do is comment on a video. At 15,000 subscribers, I'm going to pick a random video and pick a random comment. That person will win the prize. They can choose between these 2 pieces. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Really excited to share this piece with you. If you haven't, hit that Mr. X logo because I got 5 more custom Hulk pieces arriving this month. Again, I know I just called him Hulk. He's a Hulk piece. But otherwise, check out some of these other custom pieces in this playlist. Until I talk to you tomorrow, we drop daily content. Take care.